like if I like, you know, I speak to some people and they'll go, "That's crazy, bro. What are you talking about?" Nah. I'm like, well, you know, that's my experience. You know, it happened, and there was other things that happened while I was there, and I saw pictures and I saw stuff coming up in pictures, and it was unreal, man. It was unreal. But if you have a belief and you believe strongly in something, I guess that's the only way when your uh, certain chakras open and you certain parts of your brain open up to it. If you keep those things shut down anyway, you're not going to believe and you're not going to see anything. You're not going to let anything in. You know, you have to kind of be in that kind of vibe, in that kind of space to allow these things to come into your life.
Do you meditate?
I do, yeah, I do in the mornings. Not for long, maybe like a minute or so, but I've always found that quite hard to kind of sit. Well, so from 3 years ago, when I used to party, I used to find it very hard to sit in my own space. Right, I couldn't sit still. Like I'd go away for a gig and I'd be at a hotel and I'd find somewhere to go after the gig, even if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, because I just can't sit still. Now it's not like that. Now I'm content in my own company and I'm content in my own space. So I can sit back and just chill and be in a room with myself, order some room service, watch a bit of telly and go to sleep. I'm okay with that now. But I never used to be.
You do seem like you're 100 miles per hour sometimes. You're not like ADHD or anything like that. Like,
I don't know.
I mean, it's like that's an ability.
Yeah.
An ability where the school system says, you know, that's a disability. You have this issue, that problem. But some of the most smartest people are on the spectrum, but very high functioning.
Yeah.
You're very fast.
You know what it is? I think it's because of the industry that I'm in as well, because I'm always on my toes. Like now, I've just done 3 gigs. I was in Saturday, I flew to Glasgow. Then we drove to Edinburgh. We did a gig. Sunday morning, flew to Denmark. Went there, did a gig. Yesterday afternoon, flew back to London. Did a gig last night in Heathrow. And then today, got up, showered, got things done. And then I'm here.
Yeah.
Right? So my life is 100 miles an hour.
Wow.
So sometimes I have to slow myself down.
How do you balance your personal life at home with wife and kids with your job, which is very highly demanded, traveling, obviously days away?
Yeah.
How do you balance work-life balance?
It's now become, you know, it's become quite easy to balance now because now I'm sober as well. I don't spend any longer than I need to wherever I go. You know, I'm in and out, back, and when I'm here 100%. Like I'm involved, I'm present, and I'm there with my kids to do things that people in a 9 to 5 can't do. You know, so that's the balance, because they know when, okay, daddy's going now, but he's going for work. You know, I'm not going on a jolly for 3 days. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm going to make sure that everything's looked after. But when I'm back, guess what? I got a 3-day window where I'm switching off and I'm just with my kids. And I can drop them off to school. I can pick them up. I can take them to their outside school activities. I can spend time with my wife. I can do all of that. You know, and then 2 days I might have to go again, but it's cool because that's the nature of my business.
Absolutely.
You know, so we're used to that.
Yes.
But when it was fueled with alcohol before, those 2 days I'd come back and I'd be I wouldn't be present because I'm recovering from the 3 days I've been away, and then I'm going again, and then that's where there's a problem. And that's where obviously I had to kind of make changes, and you know, fortunately we've made those now. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey. I'm not going to go right to the beginning right now, because we will go up there.
Cool.
But right now I want to go to sort of, I wouldn't even call it the middle, but I would just call it the sort of stardom years.
Okay.
I want to talk about them sort of things. So I want to talk about some of your singles, you know. Let's tell the people at home what you're about, what you're made of, bro. So in 2002, you made something with Rishi Rich.
Yep.
Is it Nahin Gina?
Gina. Yeah. So that was my step into the industry, man. That was the turning point. You know, that was me being given an opportunity by a music producer, a renowned music producer who I'd never heard of at the time, because he did 10 albums before I met him, but they were Bollywood albums, right? Bollywood remix albums with some of the biggest names in Bollywood, right? But I had no idea because I was never into Bollywood. I was a proper Desi Bendu, born here, but loved my roots, Desi roots music from Punjab.
Yeah.
And that's what I listen to. Kuldeep Manak and Surinder Shindar and people like that. I don't know if you know of them,
Come
but
on.
they're old school, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But not everyone does,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
nowadays, like the youngsters now, they're all these Gen Zs. You play a Kuldeep Manak song, they can't even understand what he's talking about.
Unless it's
right?
remixed and upbeated.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Najina was, I'd been singing probably about 12, 13 years performing before I met Rishi. And I was like 23 at the time I met him, got introduced through a mutual friend, went in the studio, got a meeting with him, and he asked me to sing my favorite song at that time. And even now, it was Put Sardarande by Bulwinder Safari. And I sang about, maybe got to about 40 seconds in the vocal booth. And he was like, all right, cool, that's enough, come. And I was like, oh, damn, he didn't like it, you know? And called me out and he was like, okay. He goes, so, you know what? He goes, I like your vibe, man. He goes, I didn't expect that. I said, what do you mean? He said, like you sang this like really desi song.
What did you sing?
But Sardana de.
Can you give us a little?
It's it goes, बहुते दुखियो चलदे कौम बदले ਬੰਦੇ ਕੌਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦਲੇਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕੌਣ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਕਾਵਾਂ ਤੇ ਗਿੱਦੜਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਕੈਦ ਪਿੰਜਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਰਸਤੇ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਕਰ ਦੂੰ ਸਾਰੀ ਗਲੀ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੇਰਾਂ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਘੁੰਮਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਪੁੱਤ ਸਰਦਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੇਰਾਂ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਘੁੰਮਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਪੁੱਤ ਸਰਦਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ
Come on.
Thank you. So,
Wicked,
yeah, that was my favorite song, man. Thank you.
Some of that king energy, bro.
My voice is a bit mash up at the moment. I've done 3 shows back to back, but that was my favorite song. But I sang that for him and I was like, oh no, he didn't like it. And he was like, no, I like your style. I like your vibe. He goes, but I don't want you to do that vibe. I was like, okay, what do you mean? And I said, but this is what I do. I'm like, I sing like desi stuff, right? And he's like, nah. He goes, I want you to sing on my album. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. He said, got an album coming out and I want you to do a song for that for me. And if you're up for it. And I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. He goes, but I want you to do pop Punjabi music.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
What was your understanding of that?
I actually asked him, I said, well, what do you mean? He said, like, you know, like very like kind of Taz kind of vibe, kind of, you know, very pop kind of music. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, I've never done that kind of stuff. And he's like, but I think you can. I was like, he goes, you've got the look. Like, you know, I was young Southall boy. And, you know, I think I went to see him in my tracksuit. And he was like, yeah. He goes, I like that vibe. And I think you'll be good at pop music rather than that desi stuff. He goes, and to be fair, if you do desi stuff, at that time, desi music was quite big. And he said, everyone's doing desi stuff, right? All the old singers are like quite big right now. They're big with their whole desi vibe. He goes, and to get recognized, you got to go against the grain, right? Come with something different, something fresh. And I was like, okay. I said, all right, look, man, look, it's for your album. You know what you're doing. Right, I'm confident. I'm just very grateful that you've asked me to sing on your album. So let's do it. And he's like, all right, cool. He goes, when can you come back? And I think I went to see him on a Sunday. And I said, you tell me. He goes, okay. He goes, come back in on Wednesday. He goes, I'm going to call a writer. He goes, can you write? And I went, nah, I've never written a song in my life. And he went, okay. He goes, come in on Wednesday. I'll call a writer down and we'll do a studio session. I was like, okay, cool. So went back in on the Wednesday and he called this guy. His name's Dowjit from East London. And he went by the name of Iceman Dudley, right? And so he wrote songs. He came in and that day, funny enough, he had writer's block, right? So he couldn't come up with anything. He couldn't think of anything. And Rishi had made this beat. He'd played some stuff on the keys and he'd made a little guide beat and he's like, I'm feeling this, kind of write something to this, right? And the guy's walking around, pacing up and down the room and I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of humming along to this and I've come up with this little hook and he's like, okay, yeah, that's nice. And Rishi was like, I thought you said you didn't write. I said, I don't, but I can vibe though. And he's like, Yeah, he goes, well, that's how you do it. And I was like, okay, so it was a very, very relaxed environment, very chilled. And that's how we started writing that track.